Hi, welcome to the information session on studying abroad in the UK in England. My name is Emily Louie, and I am one of the study abroad advisors. So the first thing we're going to cover is how to study abroad in England. So many students think that you just sign up to go to England and that's it. But there's actually quite a few options, which is very exciting for a lot of the students because there's a lot of choices on the best way to study abroad for you. So I'll review all the choices, and then I promise I will get into all of the different programs within England. So the first option are the programs that are hosted within UC San Diego. So first we have our Global Seminars program that is a summer only program. In that program, you are studying abroad with a UCSD faculty member. All of the students on your trip are either UCSD students or UC students. And you'd have two courses that you take. Again, that are only over the summer, and you do have to take, you only get a choice of two courses, and you have to take both of those courses. So that's a very popular program, and that's called Global Seminars. And we do have several in the UK. The second option is Global Exchange. Global Exchange is a reciprocal agreement between us and another university. So, for example, we have an agreement with the University of Southampton and in the UK. And so we, for example, we'll send 6 students there, and then they'll send us 6 students here. That program is really for those who are very independent and who don't fit in well with the other programs. The next kind of bucket of programs I'm going to be talking about are those that are run by the UC system. The education abroad program is what probably 98% of you will be using. So I will mostly focus on that program. And this presentation is really catered towards the EAP programs only because, again, it is the most popular program. The reason it's so popular is that, first off, all of your financial aid follows you. So that is obviously really attractive right there. It is subsidized by the university, by the UC system. So it is quite a bit cheaper than the OAP programs, which I'll talk about in just a minute. The other big advantage is that it's considered within the UC system. So what that means is that you don't have to work with admissions. There's a lot less paperwork. You have some quality guarantee. There's a lot more support. Your departments are usually much more familiar with the EAP programs. So there are a lot of advantages with EAP programs. But I also just want to make sure you know that the University of California system also hosts agreements with other UC campuses. So for example, if you wanted to study at UC Berkeley or UCLA or UC Riverside, and one of the other UCs, you can also do that. The other UC campuses also offer a study abroad program. So for example, UC Davis's summer program is very popular. And then kind of how I say, majority of you are just going to go on EAP programs. There are going to be a few of you that were an OAP program or Opportunities Abroad program is a better fit. And that means is outside of the UC system. So there are literally thousands of OAP programs. If that's something that you're considering, I highly recommend for you to come to drop-in advising so we can give you more specific advice. But those who choose an OAP program are usually a best fit for them is usually one, they don't meet the requirements for an EAP program. So for example, if you don't meet the GPA requirement or the class requirement, an OAP program might be a good fit. The second kind of bucket of reasons for an OAP program would be if a country that you want to study at isn't offered in EAP. So for example, if you really want to study in Wales, we do not have any programs in Wales, or for example, Northern Ireland in UK. And so in that case, an OAP program might be the best fit for you. The third kind of bucket of reasons why someone would choose an OAP program instead of an EAP program would be if they were an international student or a out-of-state student. So OAP programs are significantly more expensive, but for those who are out-of-state students or international students, sometimes it can be a wash. Now that said, like I said, the EAP programs are much more popular with their students. So again, even for out-of-state international students, I would still say most of them still do EAP, but I just want to make sure that you know that OAP is an option for you as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about England first of all, and then I'll get to the specific programs and ways that you could study abroad. So the first, I really like this slide because there's a lot of terminology. So there's British Isles, there's Great Britain, there's UK, there's England, and so it's sometimes hard to know what we're talking about, where we're talking about. And so just to make sure that we're all on the same page, here is a map of where everything is. We do have programs for EAP in England, Scotland, and Ireland. So keep in mind, we do not have any programs in Wales and Northern Ireland. So we're not talking about those countries. Now, if you want to study abroad in Scotland or Ireland, I actually have another info session that was just hosted last week that I recommend for you to check out. The footage is on our website. So in this presentation, I'm only going to be talking about England. Okay, so that's only the part on the very bottom of the map. Okay, some differences between studying abroad in the UK versus in the US. The first thing that always comes up is that we call it US college, they call it university. Okay, so you'll notice that right off the bat. The other terminology that's oftentimes extremely confusing is that we call them courses, they call them modules. So we use the word module to mean like a part of a course. They use the word module to mean the entire course. And so that leads to a lot of confusion, but I just want to throw that out there. Even just like how to get in is quite different. So again, you will not be going through the application process because you'll apply through UCEAP. But it's still good to know like background knowledge, some of the differences between the college or university experience there versus here. So first off, US students can apply to unlimited number of schools and you apply individually to each one. Versus there, you can only apply to 5 universities within their system. So right off the bat, that's a pretty different feel. The second thing is that admissions is quite different. So for example, when you apply for UC San Diego, the admissions office reviewed your application and no faculty member or professor ever like looked at your application. That is quite different for the UK. So usually the faculty members are the ones who are responsible for the admission decisions, which means that they kind of have a different sense of investment in their students. So that's just one huge difference right off the bat. Even just the amount of time it takes in university is quite different. So we typically take 4 years for a bachelor degree, and they typically take 3 years. What that means for you is that they typically are not going to have nearly as many GE requirements. And so their coursework is very, very specialized. So for example, if you were talking to a second-year psychology student in the UK versus a second-year psychology student in the US, the one in the US maybe hasn't even taken psychology courses, definitely usually hasn't even started their upper division courses, whereas in the UK, they would start taking psychology courses kind of right off the bat. So that's something to keep in mind, especially when you get to choosing your coursework. One thing I like to warn students on is that their version of lower division is what we call upper division. What their version of upper division is what we would call graduate level. And so when you are signing up for an upper division UK course, just know that that can oftentimes mean graduate level work. Additionally, a lot of their grading is quite different from ours. We are certainly much more lenient on aggregate. And so there are certainly professors that truly believe in the UK that an A is someone who has truly publishable work. So just keep that in mind, again, as you're choosing your coursework. And if you come to drop-in advising, we will kind of help you with that process. The other thing is how the courses are taught is quite different. So for example, at UC San Diego, we have these kind of check-ins throughout the quarter. So you typically, almost every course will have a midterm, most have a paper of some sort, or quizzes or something to kind of like build you up towards that final. Versus in the UK is basically like nothing, and then your entire grade is that final exam. So many of our students are just not used to that system. There are pros and cons. Some students like it because it frees up more time for travel, because typically attendance isn't taken. you don't have, again, you don't have studying for midterms, you don't have these quizzes. But what that also means is it's really, really easy to fall behind. So just kind of know thyself and know your tendencies, particularly when you're selecting your coursework. With the US colleges, we don't have any constraint on the cost of tuition. When there, they do. So again, they can only charge up to £9,000 for UK students. Obviously, international students can be charged much more than that. And even though you will be considered an international student, you will just pay UCEAP fees. I just like to point that out as a huge difference between those that you're going to meet as the local students versus yourself. The last thing that comes up a lot is that students, as they're researching all these universities, will hear something called the Russell Group. So the Russell Group is similar to what we call the Ivy League. And so it's kind of like, think about like the Ivy League of the UK. And so that will help hopefully clarify some things. Okay. So when you are selecting a program within England, I would say my first question to you would be, do you want to be in London or outside of London? There are definitely advantages and disadvantages of being in London versus outside of London, and I will talk about all of those kind of intricacies later in this presentation. But I kind of split this up into the London universities and those outside of London. So first off, let's focus in on London. Here's a map of kind of where all of the universities are. As you can see, UCL, or University College London, and Imperial are really in the heart of campus, with the others more in King's is also in the heart of campus. And then, you know, the other three are kind of on the outskirts of campus, if you can even call it that. But they aren't necessarily in the actual little heart of the campus. That said, so University College London and King's College also are city campuses. So what that means is that you're not going to be able to say like, oh, I'm on campus. There's not a quad. There's not something like a price center, like a student union. It's similar to NYU for those of you who've ever been Manhattan, where the entire campus is just spread out throughout the city. So there isn't like one central place. With that means that you're going to have quite a significant commute no matter where you live. It also means that it is going to be quite expensive. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing is that even though these things are quite spread out, as you can see, Royal Holloway is like all the way on the edge, but it's still really only like 35 minutes to the heart of London. So even though it looks pretty spread out and feels like, oh my gosh, it's so far, it really isn't. Maybe it's similar to like La Jolla versus downtown San Diego. It's like you could easily take the trolley to downtown San Diego. I would say the tube is even easier to get to the heart of London, even again from Royal Holloway, which is all the way to the side. The other thing I forgot to mention is that you'll see University of London. Basically, that's the institution that credits London institutions. So think of it sort of like our UC system as a somewhat analogy. Okay, but let's talk about the actual universities within London. So by far our most popular host internationally is King's College London. And so this school is very, very academically prestigious. It is very academically competitive, so keep that in mind. It is, like I mentioned, located in central London, so that means that there's no set campus per se. There's just a bunch of buildings throughout the middle of London. But that said, many students like being kind of like in the heart of everything. It is very prestigious, and there are a number of courses that you can take. That said, there are some limitations. So basically, if you are a psychology student, you can only take psychology courses if you're there for an entire year. So that right there, I'm just going to mention because a lot of psychology students are interested in this program. And there's actually, if you're interested in psychology in London, I would recommend Queen Mary, which I'll talk about later. But for now, just know that there's that limitation here. If you are a computer science major, you can only take 2 classes per semester. So again, that can be quite limiting as well. The other thing is that because this is such a competitive program, if you are considering this program, keep in mind that you should also consider another backup option. So that one that is not UCL, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So just know that, again, it's very, very competitive. I know it's very popular, it's very prestigious. The last thing I'll mention is that a lot of students do say that they are spending a lot of time in the library and studying with this program. So just keep that in mind. The next university I'm going to highlight is University College London. This is, again, one very prestigious, very well-known university internationally. It's actually the largest university within England. And again, it has that central London location where you are not on a set campus. You just have buildings throughout the city. So I'm just going to say right off the bat, UCL does not offer psychology, it does not offer cognitive science. And I would say economics and political science, I would not encourage you to be a part of this program just because it's so hard to get into the courses. That said, these majors, we highly recommend that you do join for UCL if you are interested in this university. Again, it is extremely academically rigorous. Many students are saying that, you know, they didn't have as much time to travel as they wanted to. So that's something else to keep in mind with UCL. For Imperial is literally one of the world's best STEM universities. So if you are an engineer, if you are in STEM, we highly recommend it, particularly for engineering. They're world renowned for that. They're ranked actually 9th in the world. But I cannot express enough that it is extremely challenging academically. So just know that going into it, and know that there potentially could be a GPA drop, and that's okay. So choose wisely though if you do decide to go with Imperial. This program does only offer year-long placements too. So there are no, semester only options. Queen Mary is probably the most popular with UCSD students. King's is probably the most popular UC-wide, but UCSD students particularly likes Queen Mary. First off, it has a very similar vibe to UCSD, which is why I think it's so popular. So the teaching style, remember I mentioned that the British teaching style is very much, like no assessments, and then you just have your final. Queen Mary, I would say, is like one step closer to UCSD than the pure British system. We don't see as much of a GPA drop as I mentioned with the other one. So most students are able to spend some time traveling, and they have a little bit more breathing time to just enjoy the environment that they're in. There's a lot of different courses to take. It's located right by the water, which is familiar to a lot of us. But they also have a lot of societies, which is their version of student orgs. They have a lot of international students. There's a lot of support. So for example, pretty much every resource center that we have here at UCSD, you could probably expect to find a version of that at Queen Mary. And a lot of students just have a really, really positive experience. So we highly recommend Queen Mary. Is, to be honest, the one that if I were to study abroad that I would go to. And it's just a very, very popular program. Next is Royal Holloway. So this is a very historic university. So they're really well known for their Founders Hall, which is what's pictured here. And one cool thing is that Founders Hall is not just a lecture hall, but there's actually housing there too. So every year, about half of our students actually get to live in the Founders Hall, which is, again, very historic. This program I would recommend for anyone, especially who wants to study performing arts. They have other courses and there are other topics, but I would definitely say that performing arts is what they're world renowned for. But that said, I do want to remind everyone that there is a world outside of London. So if you are price sensitive, I could tell you that the first way that you can save a lot of money is just anything outside of London. So all the programs I mentioned are going to be the most expensive ones. That said, there's a lot of charm, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot of really great spots outside of London. So I'll highlight some of those now. If you want to be in a city, but not London, but you want to stay around England, Manchester is a university for you. So Manchester is a city very much in its own right. There's plenty to do, plenty of restaurants, plenty of stuff, but it's not London itself. It's about 2 hours away. Is also very popular with our students. I would say this is the most popular university outside of London. And there's trains that run all the time. If you wanted to get that London experience, maybe I would say it's similar to LA and San Diego, where we are kind of like the more like San Diego is more like kind of like the laid back version of the hustle bustle of LA. In that sense, Manchester is sort of like that laid back version of the hustle and bustle from London. So it's a very, very popular destination for a lot of for Londoners and those in England. It is the second largest university in the UK. So it is a so in that sense, it'll feel very similar to UCSD. They have a beautiful campus. And they're also world renowned for the medical sciences. So if you're pre-med or want to go into anything healthcare related, and this is a really, really great institution for you. And it also was the birthplace of nuclear physics as a trivia. Manchester itself, like I mentioned, is really, really popular for vacationing. There's a lot of culture, a lot of nightlife, a lot of restaurants, a lot of just things to do. So that's something to keep in mind. There's a lot of different courses you could take at Manchester. They host a lot of international students as well, so they have a lot of support for you. And then just as a fun fact, they do have that kind of like charming British feel. So for example, some of the accommodations still have students wear like formal dining robes when they eat dinner. And so if you want to feel like you're in Harry Potter, that could be a good choice for you. But they just still kind of have that charm, and you really feel like you're in Britain. Okay, so then the second university I'll highlight that's outside of London is Bristol. So Bristol is about an hour and a half from London, so we're getting a little closer to there. It's the capital of West England, which is quite nice. And this Bristol in general is very young, so it has that youthful feel. It is again one of the top 10 UK universities. It's really great. Lots of courses to choose from. But in particular, it's really famous and known for sports. And so if you're athletic and if you like athletics, this might be a good choice for you. And then Bristol itself is really student friendly. It does have a small town feel, but not as small as some of the other universities I'm going to highlight in just a minute. But it's kind of like that in between middle and small. It's UK's greenest city, so that's something to keep in mind. I also highly recommend Bristol if you want to be in a place that is liberal and LGBTQ friendly. Okay, University of Kent is our next university. And so now we're getting a little closer to London. We're about an hour away by train. This is the safest student town in England. So if you're concerned about safety, I would say is definitely safer than San Diego. And then within England, this is the safest you're going to get. It's one of the oldest continuous settlements in Britain. So that's just kind of a neat historic place to be. But it is a very, 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 very small city. So literally half the city are students. So keep that in mind. It is a commuter town, so most students do come in. It is called one of the leading plate glass universities, which is kind of like this other university system. It's really, really beautiful there. So the campus is built on a hill, so there's really, really beautiful views. It's very scenic. If you want to go in the law, they're especially world renowned for that in particular. And they have a really thriving social scene, even though it is a small town, but a lot of students really just like that like small, tight-knit community feel. Like I mentioned, it is a really ancient city. It is a World Heritage Site, which is quite nice. I mentioned it's already a safe city. So it's really great if you're into that kind of history. All right. And then we have our last university, which is again about an hour from London, or sorry, and 2 hours from London by train. It's one of the larger cathedral cities, which is quite nice. And so if you want to study writing in any way, I would say this is a great university for you. That is what they're absolutely world renowned for. Again, it's beautiful. It's in the scenic English countryside. It's a very, 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 very small area though. So if you want really, truly that like really, really, really small town feel, then this is a good university for you. That said, it is located right near the coastline. So if you want to be by the water, that's something else to keep in mind. You have University of Sussex Brighton. So now we're getting even closer to London. Now we're only an hour away. It is, again, a very popular seaside town. A lot of Brits go there to vacation. And they're really well known for their social sciences, international relations, communications, and media courses. So if you are hoping to study any of those courses, I highly recommend this university. And they do have a US style quad, which which UCSD doesn't even really have. But it does have that like, college feel. And there's a lot of different courses that you could take. This is another one of those very friendly to LGBTQ students and the community. So keep that in mind. It's like a very famous student town. So they're known for their university, and a lot of people visit there just because it's just like a lovely place to be. All right, so those are all of the traditional UC like university programs to study abroad with, meaning it would be similar to if someone from London were to come to UCSD and study abroad here. We'd say, okay, great, here's a course catalog, register for your courses, off you go, right? And that would be literally the equivalent of what you would do, except in England. Our UC Center programs are run quite differently. So it is a non-traditional study abroad experience, but it's still one to consider. So that's why I've listed them inside here. And so the UC Center programs are run by our UC Study Center. What that means is that you're going to be studying with a cohort of only other UC students. What that means is that you're also not affiliated with the campus. So it would be equivalent to if a group of students from London came here to study in San Diego, but they weren't a part of UCSD or SDSU or USD, but instead they had, they stayed downtown, they rented out a meeting room downtown, and they maybe had professors from UCSD and SDSU teach, but they actually weren't coming to our campus. So it's similar to that, but reverse. So again, you're not affiliated with the campus. You're never going to step foot there. You also, so it is a different experience. You also are only going to be studying alongside UC students, meaning you aren't really going to meet that many local students. But it is still a very unique experience. A lot of students really, really, really enjoy them. So the first and probably most popular program, but UC San Diego students is London's Calling. I would say this is a really, really great program if you're nervous about studying abroad, you want a lot of support, you want to be a part of a cohort and get a little bit more instruction. The program arranges all of your housing for you, which is really awesome. You stay in an apartment. There are fall quarter and fall semester options. So if you study abroad during the semester, you would leave a little earlier than the summer. So, late August, early September. If you did fall quarter, then you start when UCSD starts again, which is normally late September. There's also internship options available if you're there for the entire semester. And then I list a couple of the courses that are offered within the program. So the thing that is really cool about this program is that all the courses are really, really unique to London. So you're really taking advantage of being there and really getting to know the area. So again, this is one of our most popular programs. Students love it. They say they really left feeling like they really got to know London, both academically and socially, just from living there. The next is our business and entrepreneurship program. That program again is the UC Center program. you have winter quarter and spring semester options, so keep that in mind. There is some flexibility with that. I highly recommend this program for business administration and economics students. If you're not one of those majors, you are able to take the program, but I specifically recommend it for those majors especially. Internships are available if you do the spring semester option. And then on top of that, I listed some of the courses that you're able to take. Another really popular program is our Global Cities Urban Realities program. And what's unique about this program is that you actually are in 2 different sites. So half of the time you're in London and then half of the time you're in Paris. So it's really popular because a lot of students really, really like being able to learn about both. This program is only offered in spring quarter, so keep that in mind. And then I listed a sampling of courses within that program as well. All right, some things to consider. So as I've mentioned multiple times, the the London versus outside of London thing is that accommodation is going to be extremely more expensive in London than outside of London. Everything will be, not just accommodations, but also food, transportation, etc. And London, you can't walk to class, just as a demographic of things. So you are going to have to pay for your way somehow. So just keep that in mind. The other thing is that a lot of the London universities are just really, really big. It's similar to UC San Diego, where it's really hard to get to know faculty. You'll have that same phenomenon there versus some of our smaller programs. You'll get to know the faculty really, really intimately. Here's just a sampling of the difference in accommodations. So as you can see, King's College is almost like, a significant portion more than, let's just say, University of Kent. So there is certainly quite a difference. So again, with it, as for travel and living costs, which is a common question, it just depends on the university. So King's College and UCL, University College London, will give you a travel card for about £100 with that student discount, but keep in mind that that ends up still being an additional cost for you. Manchester gets free bus service, for example. Others universities you just walk to class. So obviously, again, King's College and University College London are going to be much more expensive because you just inherently have that extra £100 a month-ish monthly fee that you're having to pay. All right. And then just some other things to keep in mind is that a lot of students think that, oh, there's going to be a language barrier, so I'll be good. That's true, but that said, there's going to be a cultural barrier. The other thing is that, La Jolla is not a big city, and so London is a big city. So, you're going to be having culture shock. Add to that just inherently being in a big city. So that's just something else to keep in mind. And I just encourage you to think realistically about what kind of environment you thrive in. So if you thrive in having those close ties, being in a tight-knit community, I would say there are certain, some of those like larger universities might not be the best fit for you. All right. Then I'm going to cover financial aid really quickly. So the first thing is, as I mentioned, with UCEAP programs, you typically, most of your financial aid will follow with you. The other thing is that we also have a study abroad advisor, financial advisor that only works with study abroad students. And so it is possible to book an appointment with him where you pull up the program that you are interested in, and then he pull your financial information, and then he can let you know like what your out-of-pocket costs can be, which is truly quite helpful. Something else I get asked a lot is flight. So the cost of the flight is not included within the program. So that is something that you will have to purchase on your own. That said, it is usually okay if you go a little earlier. So for example, a popular option is to study, to fly in about a week or so earlier to just travel and then do your program and then travel afterwards. So you can purchase your own flights to accommodate all those travel arrangements as well. The last thing I was going to mention is that we have a lot of scholarships. So we highly, highly, highly recommend for you to apply for as many scholarships as possible. They're all listed on the Study Abroad website. And so we encourage you to definitely do that. If cost is a reason that you are not studying abroad, I would say come to Drop-in Advising, and we would love to talk to you about other programs. I will be honest with you, programs in England, all the programs in England are on all of them are on our higher end price wise. We definitely have other affordable programs. We even have programs where most students will actually save money than if they had gone to UCSD for the normal quarter. So we're happy to talk to you about those programs as well. All right, and then as for academics, how does that work? So we do have a list of courses that are already approved. Pretty much all of your coursework will transfer, which is quite nice. You will meet with your academic advisors prior to leaving to talk about coursework. And then again, you can always meet with us during drop-in advising. We can help you select your courses. And then finally, if you want more information, if you want to learn about other programs beyond the England, please come to our expo. It is on October 23rd. We will have a lot of information. All the advisors will be there, and we hope to see you there. So it's just on Town Square on Monday, the 23rd. All right. Well, thank you for joining us.